everyone. Welcome to part 3 of our English verb tenses review. We've already taken a look at both the present and past in simple and continuous. Now we want to take a look at those future tenses. So let's start with our simple future. So our first question, of course, is always what time are we talking about when we're using the future? If here's our timeline, we're just going to put our little X there. It's any time after right now in the future. Now, in terms of our verb forms, we actually have two different ways that we can make the future in English. Can you give them to me? For our form, we've got will plus which verb? Verb 1, that base form of the verb. Now, what's the other way that we can form the future? Well, am, is, are, going to, with also verb 1, that base form. Now, we'll talk more in class about the specific differences between these two. For now, we just want to get a general review. So, let's talk about, in general, when we use both of these. Well, like I mentioned before, it's to talk about any time in the future. Really, any time after right now. Right? That's our future. And again, will is usually a little further in the future or a stronger kind of promise. Am is are going to, maybe a little bit sooner or informal. Okay, now that we've got these, let's take a look at some examples. We want to get some examples with both, and we'll stick with our verb write. So, he will write, or he is going to, and that base form of the verb, write. Now, how do I make this negative? Let's try using the contraction, because in this case, we see that change. He won't write. For this one, we just add not, right? He isn't going to write. Okay, last one. How can I change these into a question? Well, again, we just switch that helping verb with the subject, and we get will he write, and is he going to write? Just to make sure we've identified those verb forms, we'll point them out here. So we have will, won't with our base form, and will base form with the subject in between. Here we have is going to write, isn't going to write, and then helping verb, subject, going to write. Final thing we always talk about is keywords. What keywords are you going to see to let you know it's the future? Well, often we have something like next with year. Next year, next week, next month, right? We also might see something like in plus some more information, in 2 weeks, in 10 years, in 1 month, and that's going to signal future. Now let's take a look at our future continuous. Put our name up here, and then we'll take a look at our timeline. So be thinking about, when am I going to be using future continuous? What time am I talking about? All right, so here's our timeline. Now, just like in the past continuous, where we had some action that was continuing in connection to another one, it's the same thing in future continuous. I'm going to have some continuing action that is, in fact, interrupted by another one, or interrupted by another time that we're talking about. So, let's make a note of that for our use. one continuing action in the future, of course, this time, interrupted by or in relation to another one, another action, or could be also another time. Okay, so what form is the verb going to take here? Just like in our future tense, we're going to have two different forms that we could use here, but the most common one that we'll hear is will be plus, well, it's continuous, so of course, like with all continuous, we have to have that verb for. All of these have a be verb and ing, right? Okay, let's get some examples here. So we'll keep our he and write, okay? So he will be writing when I call. Again, did you notice here how many actions we have? We have our future will be writing when, another thing, I call. Now, how do I make this negative? He, again, won't, if I use the contraction, or I could say will not. He won't be writing when I call. Again, we have our continuous, won't be writing, with some other action. Oops. Let's use our blue so we can really highlight that there. Okay, final one now. Question. How do I ask this as a question? Well, again, we just flip that subject and helping verb. You'll notice that's the same for every single tense. Will he be writing when I call? And of course, we want to make sure we add our question mark there on the end. So again, will, subject, be writing when I call. There's our second action. Okay, so what keywords are we going to use here? Well, we have the key word that we've used in the sentence here, when. And just like with the past, we might also see something like until, or before, and after. All right, that's it. You've got now all of these 6 simple and continuous tenses. Great job. Keep up the hard work.